Ready to go. Matt Schlapp and Marianne Marsh are standing by to debate the president's budget, health care, and anything else that might come up. Welcome back to Justice. Ben Stein's still on tap for tonight, as well as a special street justice from the St. Patrick's Day Parade. I'll ask New Yorkers about Hillary Clinton's reported thoughts about running for mayor, but now it's time for the political panel. Matt Schlapp, chair of American Conservative Union, Marianne Marsh, Democratic strategist. Thank you both for being here. Okay, I'm going to start with President Trump. He keeps getting sued with these executive orders. It's almost like a race to see, which state is going to be the first one to sue him. And yet when I think about it, Matt, all of the Obamacare stuff, when the president said you could keep your health care and you could keep your doctor, I mean, that was outside of the law. And since the judges are reaching outside of the executive order and the law itself, why wasn't Obama sued for those lies and so those mischaracterizations?
You know what's funny, Judge, is he was a constitutional law professor, and he was overturned more times by the federal judiciary than any other modern president. So he actually was overturned a whole bunch, and it's true on Obamacare, he reached and grabbed extra powers to make all kinds of changes in it. And the difference is, I think, with President Trump is that this judge in Hawaii, he didn't even read the executive order. He basically saw him at a rally and said, I think he has animus towards Muslims, so I'm going to rule this out of order. It is absurd, and it angers people. Well, okay, but you know what? I'm going to move on to the budget. Marianne, I'm going to ask you about the budget. Look, it's the president proposes and Congress disposes, or whatever it is, the blueprint. Now, there are those who say that, it's a good thing that he hasn't really added anything, but he's taken away some stuff. I assume that you're not happy with that.
Well, I think what's interesting is Republicans have always done a really great job at convincing low-income voters to vote against their own economic interests. And nobody's done that better than Donald Trump, and his budget reflects that. And he even admitted that very thing in his interview with Tucker Carlson this week, where Tucker challenged him on this and said on a number of things, especially in terms of low-income housing, heating programs, Meals on Wheels, things like that. 500,000 veterans won't get their Meals on Wheels because of Donald Trump's budget, for example, yet he wants to help veterans. So he went through and he said, in fact, some of these things are the opposite. Donald Trump admitted that. So I don't think this budget is really going to go that far, because even Republicans oppose a lot of it, and they're up in 2018 long before Donald Trump is.
But Matt, what do you say to the truth is that all of the entitlements, and the president promised that, Medicare and Social Security untouched, but he didn't add anything to the budget. So what about these things like Meals on Wheels? I think what Marianne is missing is that a lot of Americans who don't make a lot of money, whether you want to call them middle class or lower middle class or the working poor, they feel like they're actually picking up more and more of the expenses of people who don't work. For instance, Obamacare and the expansion of Obamacare, it was about able-bodied people who aren't working. And I think that's where the people who are working get frustrated. They want to make sure that they don't have to pay for people they don't want to pull the wagon when there's so many people sitting idly in the wagon. When it comes to Meals on Wheels, these are great programs, but we have to ask ourselves, when we're $20 trillion in debt, can we just keep borrowing more and more on our grandkids' credit card? And I think Donald Trump is saying no, it makes no sense. Well, but Matt, isn't part of the argument that this is something that is better handled by the individual states? Absolutely. That it's not so much that he's not in favor of some of these programs, but they should be handled by the states. And that, the fact that he hasn't added to the deficit, and that what he's trying to do is keep some of these programs literally untouched. And that if people want to be charitable, like things like the Endowment for the Arts, that they can do it directly, as opposed to burdening people who can barely make their taxes and pay their bills. That's right. When we have these... Let's let Marianne answer that. Sure.
Well, I think the problem here is you push things from the federal government down to the state government. Right. They push it down to the cities and towns. And now what is happening increasingly is people's quality of life is determined by their zip code more and more and more. And there are some common things that we should all share in. Taking care of our veterans is certainly one of them. Taking care of kids who can't afford, whose parents can't feed them at home at breakfast and lunch, should get meals and snacks at school. Things like that. Those are basic things we should all participate in.
are going without food is absurd in this country. It's just there are different programs with different names. Come on.
Judge,
there are more people on social services and food stamps than ever in the history of this country.
Judge, two things you should know. Just like Meals on Wheels, a lot of kids in a lot of schools now get meals to bring home for the weekend. And in the summer, when they're out of school, one of the biggest challenges for low-income families is making sure they can get 3 meals on the table for their kids.
Absolutely.
Just check anywhere. That's a fact.
Absolutely. Marianne, look, we feed half the world.
That's
right.
I mean,
you don't think... Go ahead, Matt.
No, this is exactly right, which is, look, Marianne, I think there comes a point where it's not about are we compassionate, but there comes a point in all this where common, everyday working class folks feel like that their taxes and their expenses and paying for government, let's face it, it takes 2 incomes in most families just to pay for all the government in the course of a year. Every year it takes further into that year to get to the point where the money you make after that point you can actually keep. And it's getting to the point where there was a little bit of a political revolt on Election Day. I don't know if you were paying attention, where people were saying, hey, we are tired of the idea that all of us who don't make that much money have to pay for everybody else who seems to be making bad lifestyle choices. We all care about kids, but at a certain point, we have to have responsibility.
Look, there isn't anyone who doesn't think that kids should be getting food.
That's right.
But to say that without the Meals on Wheels, the veterans aren't getting, that's ridiculous. Look, the Veterans Administration has a $163 billion bloated budget. I think they ought to get rid of the VA and start giving these people direct access to money. Marianne, last word.
2 points. One, a lot of homeless veterans out there, and there are too many of them, and they're not being taken care of. This budget doesn't help them. Number 2, how many people in this country now who voted for Donald Trump are just realizing that they are on Obamacare and they're about to lose it? And that's the big challenge here now.
That's
when they realize that everything they care about, they're going to lose.
Matt,
that's simply not true.
That's
a fact. That is
not true. That's a fact. Thanks for being with us. And welcome back to Justice. With me now, former speechwriter for President Nixon, Ben Stein. All right, Ben, look, you have some very strong feelings about this judge. Why don't you give us a 30-second breakdown of what you think of the Hawaiian judge who put a stop to the president's second executive order on the temporary travel ban?
The Constitution is absolutely clear-cut, Your Honor. The president has authority over immigration. Congress has given it to him over and over and over again. This judge suddenly came out of nowhere, out of some surf shop in Hawaii, and he says, no, I have authority over everything. It's up to me. Forget what the Congress did. Forget the Constitution. I'm in charge. Now, this is a very bad situation in which any law can be struck down by even the most trivial district court judge. And really, the judges have become the dictators in America. We have essentially dictators in black robes now telling the American people, your votes don't matter, Congress's votes don't matter, I'm in charge.
Well, and of course, the judge that you referenced was just up on the screen, at Derek Watson. And, you know, he's another Harvard man, though, you know. Doesn't that add a few credentials to his resume?
Not if you've gone to Yale Law School like me.
I knew you were going to say that.
Harvard Law School graduates are very, very smart people, and some of my best friends, very, very brilliant people, are teachers at Harvard Law School. But at Yale, we developed the theory of legal realism. That was long before my time there, which said, basically, judges can just decide anything they want. Doesn't matter what the legal precedents are. Doesn't matter what the statute is. They can just decide anything they want. They can find a case somewhere and claim that backs them up. And then suddenly they're in charge. It's a very serious situation in which basically
Ben, forget about finding a case, Ben. What this judge said was, I'm going to find animus against Muslims based on what he said in during the campaign. Are you kidding me?
Absolutely.
Since when do you go beyond the four corners of the executive order and say, I'm going to look for animus? How about you say to the CEO of GE, what'd you say to that broad the other night in a bar? Not that I'm suggesting anything. I don't even know who the CEO of GE is. You know, it's the four corners of the contract. End of the story.
It is not the end of the story in the theory of legal realism, which we developed again at Yale Law School long, long ago, which says judges don't have to be bound by the four corners of the contract or the Constitution or the laws of Congress or the laws of the states. It's whatever they want to decide, and then they will say that's the law. Very dangerous situation. We essentially have a situation in which the judiciary is out of control, not bound by anything but themselves. We want a strong judiciary. We want an intelligent, vigilant, very strong judiciary. But we do not want a judiciary which has suddenly made itself dictators. And that's basically what's happening now.
And, you know, when you talk about animus, I can't help but think that some of these federal judges, district court, lowest level federal judge, you know, are responding to some of the things that Donald Trump has said during the campaign. You know,
of course they are. Of course they are. Well, I mean, I have a friend named Nolan Rappaport, a very, very, very smart man I've known for almost all of my life. He's a great expert in immigration law. He said it's a simple thing. The president can decide, the Congress can decide, none of it matters. If the court thinks it doesn't like Donald Trump, they'll rule it unconstitutional. It has nothing to do with the law. It just has to do with the judge's personal animus against Trump. It's not an animus against immigrants that matters. It's not animus against Muslims that matters. It's the court's animus towards Trump. That's what counts.
No, I agree. And very quickly, because we've got to wrap in a second, Gorsuch's hearings start tomorrow. What do you think is going to happen? We haven't heard much. What does that tell you?
I think that we haven't heard much. He's a very impressive guy. The New York Times is trying to drop a big lead anchor around him about his connections with a very rich guy named Anschutz. I don't think it's going to fly. I think he's going to get through. I think he will be a great, great justice. God bless him.
Yeah, I think so, too. And Ben Stein, what do you think about Russia? Is Russia hacking us?
I imagine they're hacking us, and I imagine we're hacking them. But, I mean, that's standard stuff. And, by the way, the Wall Street Journal, which I consider the greatest paper in the country by far, hinted very strongly just before Trump came out with saying that Obama was tapping him, that Obama was tapping him. So that's not something that Trump just dreamed